You ever drive a Louisiana back road after midnight? No lights, no sound. Just the kind of darkness that eats at your eyes until you start to think it's breathing back. They say the air's thicker down here, not just with heat, but with memory. Things sink into it, stay in it, never quite die. My name's doesn't matter now. What matters is the story, the one that Sheriff Eldon Brackett left behind. See, in 1996, Sheriff Brackett disappeared somewhere past St. Clement Parish, a place even the maps forgot. One of those towns the state swore they evacuated after the flood. Only, there were still lights out there, still phone calls, still voices. Dispatch, this is Brackett. I'm crossing parish line. Repeat, entering restricted area. That was his last transmission.
3 weeks later, a local hunter found his patrol car half buried in the mud, doors open, radio still hissing. Inside were 13 cassette tapes, labeled in his handwriting. One of them was still recording when they found it. No one ever released the tapes, not officially. But a copy, a bootleg, started showing up in truck stops, pawn shops, even online message boards years later. I've heard it, and I'm telling you now, you shouldn't. This is Sheriff Eldon Brackett, St. Clement Parish, responding to old case 78-04, missing persons, presumed drowned. 1 male, 2 females, unresolved. Coordinates bring me out to mile marker 7. Roads washed out. Air smells like copper and rain. Dispatch, anyone copy? Silence. They say the tapes get worse as they go on. Not with screams, not with what you'd expect, but with truths. The kind that slide under your tongue and rot there. He wasn't investigating a murder. Not exactly. He was chasing a ghost. The story goes that Sheriff Brackett had grown obsessed with a set of missing persons that the parish chalked up to swamp drownings. But the old-timers, the ones who still remembered the Redeemer's Rest Church, they said otherwise. Said there was a preacher once. Said he'd tried to save the town after the hurricane, only to start baptizing people in the floodwater long after the church had sunk. Said he claimed the swamp had a voice, and when you listened, it promised to make you whole again. But when the water receded, all that was left was his cabin and the sound of a bell that still rings at 3:17 every night. That's where Brackett went. That's where the tapes begin. Dispatch, found the church ruins. Half submerged, structure unstable, smells like mildew and sulfur. There's something carved into the foundation. He is risen through reflection. They found that same phrase scrawled in his handwriting on the back of every cassette. Through reflection. The first few hours of tape are just field notes, observations, weather patterns, coordinates. But then his voice changes, gets softer, more hesitant, like he's not talking to dispatch anymore. Saw movement inside, looked like a man in a hat. Could have been my reflection, hard to say, not real. Real, not real. He describes photos he found. Parishioners lined up in front of the church, eyes scratched out. Then the tape goes quiet for 6 full minutes. Just the hum of static and a faint dripping sound. And then he says, almost like he's whispering in someone's ear, "They were all looking at me." I don't know if any of this is much. I thought it was deaded for this. I said for as well, a new version of his must. I found out our life. I don't know if any of this is real, but there's something about the way he says it. Calm, certain, like he's reporting a crime,
that makes it worse. The final minute of that first tape is him breathing, slow, deliberate, like he's trying not to make a sound. And in the background, faint but real, you can hear a man's voice humming Amazing Grace. Then a splash. If this was just a ghost story, it'd end there. But the parish records show something impossible. Sheriff Brackett's father, also named A. Brackett, served as a preacher in the same region back in the 1950s, before the flood, before the disappearances, before the Redeemer's Rest Church ever burned down. Same last name, same voice pattern, same drawl on the word grace. When I first heard that, I thought it was a coincidence. But the longer I listened, the more I realized something. Eldon didn't find the church. He went home. When people vanish in the bayou, the water doesn't take them right away. It keeps them, suspended between worlds, reflections waiting for someone to notice. And if you go out there alone, sometimes it notices you back. 6. I found that. The following is a direct transcript, what remains of the tapes, cleaned, enhanced, and chronologically ordered. But if you hear someone whisper your name while you're listening, don't answer.
This is Sheriff Eldon Brackett, St. Clement Parish, Day 1. The air's still, water's black as oil. I can see my reflection in it even though it's night. Not real. Real. Not real. I think it smiled at me. Sheriff Eldon Brackett, log entry, March 13th, dawn. Ground fog. Temperature dropped in the night. Returning to the Redeemer's Rest structure for evidence collection. He speaks evenly, but his breaths ride higher in his chest now, catching at the edges. The light isn't right for morning, too silver, too thin, as if time has remembered the shape of sunrise without any of its warmth. Dew shines like a net laid over the grass, over the fallen hymnals, over the char-black ribs of the ruined church. He steps inside. Interior shows, changes. He pauses, eyes adjusting. Altar is no longer bare. The recorder hears him move closer. Boots sink, wooden ribs complain. On the altar, a scatter of wet photographs stuck to the wood, old, swollen with swamp water, their edges furrowed like leaves. He peels the first photo loose. In it, a congregation stands in front of a white clapboard church not yet burned. Hats, Sunday dresses, faces painted with that mid-century stiffness people wore for cameras. But every set of eyes is gouged with a sharpened nail, ragged tears where pupils should be. Defacement intentional, he says, but the words are far away, a rote officer's cadence floating over a growing undertow. He lifts another, a choir boy, hands folded, head tilted, smiling. The eyes are gone, yes, but the mouth is wrong too, stitched by scratches into a shape that is almost whistling. A third, a fourth, every eye gone, every mouth almost singing. Then he reaches the last photograph and knows, with a quick, small certainty that lands in his gut like a coin tossed down a well, that this one was meant for him. A sheriff stands at the church door. Same stance, same holster, same nose he was teased about in high school. And though the picture is decades old, the man in it is unmistakably Eldon Brackett. The eyes, intact, not gouged. The only eyes left among the pile. Staring back with a kindness that isn't his. He doesn't breathe. Then he laughs once, quietly, the sound catching on itself. Not real. Real. Not real. He lays the photo down gently, as if it might wake. The altar is sticky. He realizes the photographs aren't just wet with swamp water. They've been pressed into a thin varnish of something sweet that clings to his fingertips. It smells like cane syrup left too long on a stove. Behind him, somewhere in the nave's broken ribs, a hymn moves. Not sung, mouthed. Voices without air, shaping a-may-zing, and losing the breath for grace. He turns toward the sound, flashlight steady. Sheriff's office, identify yourself. The hymn stops, but the shape of it keeps going, like ripples after a stone. His beam sweeps the dark. Dust floats and hangs, refusing to fall. He reaches the pulpit again. The carved words on the scorched wall glisten with moisture as if freshly cut. He is risen through reflection. He anchors himself in routine. Evidence first, fear later. He clicks the camera. Another photo. Notes into the recorder. Vandalism consistent. Wording unchanged. Substance on altar unknown. Samples to be collected. He opens his bag. Vials clink. That's when the drip stops. Not slows. Stops. As if a hand pressed a finger against the sky's leak. The silence discovers a shape. It's large. It's close. And it's listening. If I lift, something taps. Once, twice, thrice. Measured. Patient. He kneels, fingers along the pulpit's belly, finds a seam. Hinged. He pries. A small door yawns open to a crawl space. The smell blows out first. Damp hymnals, old candled tallow, and the copper of dried blood that isn't there. He holds the flashlight in his teeth, lowers his hand in. Cool air strokes his wrist. His fingertips meet glass. A jar, another, then a third. He brings one up, wipes the grime. Inside, suspended in amber syrup, a slip of paper curls like a drowned moth. Letters bleed through. Brackett. He sets the jar down, careful. Another jar, another name. He recognizes 2 surnames from the old missing persons file he's been nursing. He shakes his head hard like a dog casting off river water. Not real, real, not real. He swallows, voice steady enough to pass for steady. Small canning jars, contents unknown, labels bearing surnames of missing. Evidence seized. The hymn resumes, closer, now shaped by lips that are just behind him. He caps the jar, replaces it with professional gentleness. The whisper slides into his left ear, warm and familiar. Sheriff's office. He goes cold. That's his voice. Not a mimic, not an impression. His cadence, his backbeat, his unslept rasp. He doesn't spin, he doesn't run. He straightens exactly the way you might stand in your kitchen at night when you realize the window above the sink shows not the backyard, but a room behind you. Who's there? No answer, only his own mouth from somewhere else. Who's there? Shh. The echo arrives late, like a radio transmission bounced off a tower that no longer exists. He lifts the flashlight and tilts it toward the puddle he saw yesterday, half under a collapsed pew. In its flat black, sunrise tries to live and fails. But there is a face there. Not a mirror's faithful return, but a face like his assembled by memory.
and want. The mouth shapes words his throat does not move for. Welcome home. He clamps his jaw until the hinges ache. Show yourself. The reflection smiles. It is not cruel. That makes it worse.
The bell tolls once, closed this time, as if hung behind the pulpit. He keeps his face forward. He does not look back, but his eyes join his fear and betray him, a slip, a flick, and he glances to the side. In the aisle, between pew shadows, someone stands, hat brim down, shoulders squared the way his are squared in every tense conversation of his life. The figure's hands hang easy. It breathes. He can hear it. He can hear himself. Sheriff's office, it says again, softer, apologetic. A thing he has said to widows at doors, a thing he has said to drunks in corners, a thing he has said to himself in the mirror on nights he didn't sleep. He moves his hand toward his holster without drawing, not because he intends to use the weapon, but because the weight says real to the animal in his brain. I'm here to help you, he says, and hears perfectly on time. I'm here to help you, from the thing in the aisle. Stop. Stop. Do not advance. Do not advance. The overlap is exact until it isn't. A quarter beat late, then a half. Then the echo steps out of rhythm like a dancer pretending to be drunk. The figure's head lifts. He can't see eyes beneath the brim, only a plane of darkness that eats the beam of his light. Stack right. He backs toward the door slow. The figure doesn't move. The reflection in the puddle turns its head toward him, though he doesn't. His neck prickles. Not real. Real. Not real. His heel hits the threshold. Air outside smells like mud and relief. The figure takes one step. A single wet bootfall in a place where there is no water. It is enough. He bolts. Outside, the fog is lower, hugging his knees. He runs without dignity, the way people run when the dark closes hands around their ribs. The bell tolls again, behind. Before, from inside his own skull. Bell, then another, then a third, each softer than the last. He doesn't look back. He aims for the ranger path he cut yesterday. But the trees wear their own new arrangement, trunks turned where trunks were not, cypress knees like knuckles, a path that insists on leading him in a circle politely. No. He says it in a whisper, because the thing that says it back would like an invitation to say it louder. No. No. He stops, lets the forest settle, listens. There, ahead, a sound that shouldn't be here. A typewriter, old keys biting ribbon. A clerical sound, out of time, brisk, tidy. He follows it against his better sense because everything else insists he move the other way. 30 paces, 50. The trees thin. A cabin lifts itself out of the fog like a memory. Cypress stilts, shotgun porch. The door no bigger than the word welcome deserves to be. On the porch, a little wood table holds a typewriter. New paper threaded, keys tapping on their own. He stops at the bottom step. The keys pause. Then type 4 words, slow enough for him to read each letter as it is struck. SHERFBRACKET. The carriage dings. The bar slaps back. The machine resumes, now faster, writing what he is thinking before he can decide not to think it. He climbs 2 steps. The machine stops as if not to be rude. He says, "Who's inside?" And the machine answers by writing, "WHO since IDE." He wants to be very calm now. There is no other way to stay in one piece. "If you need assistance, step out slowly, hands where I can see them." The machine waits, then types, "STEPOUTSLOWLY, hands where I can see them." He feels it, the humor of something that has never laughed. Not real. Real. Not real. He moves to the door, hand on the knob. It's warm. Inside, when he opens it, there will be the first true lie he cannot explain away. A mirror at the far wall, taller than any man, older than any house here has a right to be. Gilt frame weeping black patina, and in it, not the room he stands in, but the nave of the church, rebuilt and crowded with parishioners asking with their empty eyes if he will lead them in the hymn, because no one else remembers the words. He knows this before the door swings. He knows it the way you know the rain will hit a second before the wind reaches you. He turns the knob anyway. Door, long swells, harmonics crawling like fingers along the walls. The cabin's single room is bare. A cot, a shelf of jars filled with syrup-dark liquid, a floorboard in the center polished by decades of steps to a dull shine. And the mirror. The mirror shows not the cot or the shelf or the board, but pews, candles, faces, and himself at the pulpit with a mouth that knows all the verses. The mirror self smiles the kind smile. His own lips are bloodless, thin lines. From somewhere behind the glass, deep in the church that isn't here, a pulsing begins. 3 knocks, answered by 3 knocks, answered by 3 knocks. The rhythm of a door you have forgotten ever closing. 3, pause, 3, pause, 3. Steady, wooden, patient. A hand, his hand, lifts in the mirror. Not in the room, in the glass. It beckons, just once. He steps back hard enough to stumble. His shoulder clips the shelf, a jar drops. A name floats up in the spill like an air bubble. Brackett. The typewriter outside on the porch begins to hammer. Letters like rain. Then stops on a ding so delicate it feels like a held breath released. He doesn't look again. He runs. Through the door, down the steps, into fog that now tastes of iron filings. Behind him, from cabin and mirror and church that isn't, his own voice calls. The same one he has used across 3 decades to summon calm to scenes that never had a chance at it. Sheriff's office. Then, softer, almost fond. Welcome home. Not real. Real. Not real. He repeats it until his tongue is clumsy with it. At the tree line he stops because the swamp stops him. Cypress knees form a palisade, water beyond black enough to erase a life. No path out. Only a way in. He turns. Slowly now because fast would be for prey. Fog kneads itself into the shape of a road behind him. Just past the cabin, just where it wasn't, a sign on 2 new posts gleams with fresh paint that will not be there if he survives to return. Redeemer's Rest. This way. He lifts the recorder. His voice is barely more than a breath. Day 2 continued. First encounter with an unknown party. I believe the unknown party is me. Advancing against better judgment. A pause that is an hour long inside a single second. If the mirror calls me, I won't answer, but the bell already knows how to time his steps. And somewhere beneath the syllables of a hymn that can't draw air, the swamp begins to speak his name the way a mother calls a child home in from the dark. The tape ends there. Not in a click, but in a drift, as if the tape itself needed to take a breath before what comes next. Sheriff Eldon Brackett, log entry, March 15th. Day 4 on site. Returning to the cabin found near the church perimeter. No further contact with dispatch. Radio interference constant. He speaks slower now, words landing a half-second apart like each one needs to find its own footing. You can hear how the swamp has gotten inside his lungs, how the humidity makes speech a labor. Compass shows true north, but I keep facing south. Doesn't make sense. He tries to laugh. It fails somewhere in the throat. The air is thicker. No birds, no frogs. The silence here feels curated, as if the world itself is holding its breath to watch what he'll do next. He reaches the cabin again. The typewriter on the porch is gone. In its place sits an old reel-to-reel recorder, the kind he used back when he was a rookie. He crouches. There's a tape already loaded. Label, playback, March 15th, 1996. He hesitates, then presses play. A voice crackles through the machine. His own. Sheriff Eldon Brackett, Day 4 on site. Returning to the cabin found near the church perimeter. He hit stop. Silence. What the hell? He rewinds it. Plays again. The tape repeats everything he's just said. Same words, same pacing, same nervous half-laugh. Not real, real, not real. He whispers it like a mantra, like a child trying to hush thunder. He takes the recorder's reel and turns it over. The backside is blank, but scratched into the metal with something sharp are the words, "Stay out of the water." He looks toward the swamp. It's still, black, no wind. And yet, ripples spread outward, circles forming from the center like something just sank. He calls into the water, foolish but human. "If someone's out there, identify yourself." The ripples stop. The water goes mirror flat. And then, faint, distorted, his voice comes back. "If someone's out there, identify yourself." But the echo doesn't come from the swamp. It comes from behind him. Slow, deliberate. He spins, flashlight trembling. Nothing. Just the tree line. He breathes out. Not real. Real. Not. The recorder clicks itself back on. The voice on the tape continues, but it's no longer his present tone. It's older, hoarser, filled with fatigue. If you're hearing this, you already stayed too long. The water isn't deep, but it's endless. Don't look for the bottom. He lunges forward, slamming stop. Nothing but silence again, except for the faint knock once under the porch. 3 beats, pause, 3 again. He mutters, same pattern from the church. He kneels, moves aside some rotted planks. Beneath the porch, darkness churns like slow breath. He shines his light, sees water moving, slow, rhythmic, though the ground is dry. He leans closer. The water below looks reflective, showing the porch, his boots, the beam of his flashlight. And then another beam appears, shining back up at him. Not real. Real. Not real. He jerks back.
Light gone, reflection gone, only still, quiet mud. He leaves the cabin and returns to his cruiser. But when he opens the driver door, his own radio is already on, his voice playing through it from earlier that morning. Returning to the cabin near the church perimeter. Day 4 on site. He kills the power. Radio still whispers for 3 seconds after. He slams it off again, breath shaking. Then he notices the odometer. He's been driving nowhere for hours, yet it reads 421 miles traveled. He grips the steering wheel until his knuckles pale. Not real. Real. Not real. He checks his reflection in the rearview mirror. Tired eyes, unshaven jaw, dirt smudged across his collar. But then the reflection blinks, and he doesn't. He freezes. The mirror version of him opens its mouth, silent words forming, syllables he can almost read. Don't leave. He slams the mirror upward, breathing hard. He gets out, walks until he finds an old parish sign half swallowed in mud. On it, the paint flakes, but the words beneath are clear enough. Welcome to St. Clement, home of the Redeemer. He reads it out loud, and from the trees an echo reads it back, not delayed, not distorted, perfectly synchronous. He starts laughing again. It's that kind of laugh that doesn't sound like amusement, just fear with nowhere left to run. That night he sets up a camp near the ruins. Lantern light flickers off rusted metal. He begins reviewing the original 1978 case file, brittle pages, handwritten names. Local parishioners, Abel Crouch, Martha Dubroil, Samuel Pine. He stops. The last name is smudged, but the signature at the bottom reads Reverend A. Brackett, his father. He flips through the rest of the file, breathing shallow. Every sermon transcript is signed with the same name. The last one reads, He has given me another chance. Through reflection, he is risen. He lowers the paper, eyes unfocused, then whispers, My father never preached. He was a deputy, but the truth is older than his memory. The tape recorder clicks by itself. Eldon, a voice says softly, calm, southern, familiar, his father's voice. You've done good work, son. Now it's your turn. He whispers, Dad? The tape answers, through reflection. He reaches for the stop button, but his hand shakes so badly he misses twice. When he finally presses it, nothing happens. The voice keeps going. He needs a shepherd, Eldon. You'll bring them home. He throws the recorder against the ground. It splits open, the tape spilling out like entrails of cellophane. But the voice continues, not from the recorder anymore, from every direction. Through reflection. Through reflection. Through reflection. Each repetition grows quieter until it's no longer sound but vibration, like something humming inside his skull. He presses his palms over his ears and shouts, Not real! Real, not real. The words echo back in 3 separate tones, his father's, and something else entirely. Then silence. He stumbles toward the water's edge. His flashlight beam lands on something floating, a tape reel half submerged, spinning slowly. He picks it up. On the label, written in his own handwriting, but older, shakier, Do not play. He looks at the cabin again. The door stands open now, though he remembers closing it. From inside, faint typewriter clacks return, typing faster, manic. The sound shifts, becomes rhythmic, like a heartbeat pretending to be mechanical. He whispers, "If it's already writing me, maybe I'm already gone." He laughs once more softly, a dry, exhausted thing. Then the bell tolls, this time not in the distance, right beside him. The toll, he drops the tape, it rolls into the water. The ripples bloom outward, swallowing his reflection whole. There, rolls across the water, Sheriff Eldon Brackett, log entry March 16th. 5th day, no sleep, no signal, still hearing the bells. His voice is thin now, unraveling at the edges as if pulled through cloth. The words come slow, heavy with something he doesn't want to admit. The dawning thought that the investigation has already turned inward. He exhales. Heading back toward the church. Cabin's different again. Doors gone, porch gone, just foundation. The mic picks up his footsteps, soft on wet earth, cautious. You can hear the hiss of water nearby, small ripples against cypress roots. He mutters, half to himself, half to the recorder. Sun came up twice this morning, or maybe it never went down. He tries to laugh, but it catches in his throat. Not real. Real. Not real. He steps into a clearing. The air hums, low, vibrating, like an electrical field you can feel in your teeth. Then, faintly, beneath that hum, his own voice. Sheriff Brackett reporting, approaching church perimeter. The same line he spoke yesterday. He spins, shining his flashlight in a slow circle. Nothing. But the voice continues, somewhere ahead. It's playing from the trees. He follows. The fog thickens, each step heavier, slower, sounds swallowed whole. After a long minute, he finds something hanging from the branches. Thin cassette tapes, dozens of them, swinging from fishing line like ornaments. He reaches up, takes one down. The tape's label reads, March 17, 1996, Day 6. Tomorrow's date. He frowns. How? He plays it. The voice on the tape is his, older, hollow. Day 6. Church fully restored. Parishioners present. Reflection complete. He yanks it out. Tape unspools in his hand. He whispers, voice trembling. Not real. Real. Not real. Then stops, because he hears something, faint, rhythmic. Typing. The same typewriter sound from the cabin, but it's coming from everywhere now, from the air itself. So he turns in place. The fog is moving in time with the keystrokes. Every hit of a key sends out a ripple, shaping the mist into outlines. Pews, walls, faces. The church is reforming around him, brick by brick, pew by pew. He backs away, breath shallow. This isn't possible. Within seconds, the ruin is whole again. Candles burning, air thick with incense. And at the pulpit, himself, or rather, something wearing his face. The figure smiles warmly. Welcome, Sheriff. The voice is steady, measured, kind. The kind of voice you'd trust to read scripture. He whispers, What are you? The reflection sheriff tilts his head. You know me. You've always known me. He steps closer. You're not real. The figure repeats, softly, in perfect sync. You're not real. The air ripples again, and for a split second, the church dissolves, showing something beneath it. Black water, endless and writhing. Shadows drift beneath the surface like faces pressed against glass. He gasps, God. Then the church is back, seamless, beautiful, spotless.
The reflection sheriff is still smiling. He walks down the aisle. The pews are filled now, with figures dressed in Sunday clothes, motionless, faces hidden by wide-brimmed hats. He whispers into the recorder. Congregation present. No response to verbal contact. Unidentified individuals, stationary. He raises his flashlight, aims at the nearest one. Its head turns slowly, just enough to reveal that the face beneath the hat is his. And the next one, and the next. Every face in every pew. Him. He stumbles back, trips over the aisle rug. When he lands, the recorder falls beside him, still running. The voice, his own voice from the pulpit, says, You've done your duty, Sheriff. You've come home. He shouts, I'm leaving. I'm not part of this. The reflection laughs softly. Kind, not cruel. Everyone leaves. But the reflection stays. The candles flicker. The figures in the pews rise in perfect unison. Hundreds of boots on wooden floors. Each of them begins humming. It's not words, just vibration. It's amazing grace reduced to rhythm, stripped of melody, pulsing through the church. He covers his ears, yelling into the recorder, Not real! Real, not real. The voice from the pulpit keeps talking, but it's speaking before he can. It's predicting his words, half a second ahead, as if reading from a script he hasn't seen. Not real, real, not real, not real, real, not real. The sound distorts, doubling over itself. The congregation's humming becomes one solid tone, unbearable. Then, silence. Every figure collapses back into the pews like marionettes with cut strings. The candles all extinguish at once. The reflection at the pulpit remains. It steps down, approaches him slowly, and kneels. Its face flickers, shifting between his father, himself, and something else. Its eyes are kind, too kind. It places a hand on his shoulder. You're tired, Sheriff. Let me drive a while. He jerks back, crawling toward the door, but when he looks outside, the swamp isn't there anymore. It's the road. His patrol car sits just ahead, idling, lights flashing softly through fog. He rushes toward it, jumps inside and slams the door. But the keys are already in the ignition, the engine's already on. And the radio? It's playing his own voice. Dispatch, this is Sheriff Brackett, crossing parish line now. The same first words from 5 days ago. He screams, punching the dashboard. The sound distorts, becomes static. The world outside the windshield flickers. The church appears again, then the cabin, then the trees. Time itself rewinds and loops like a broken film reel. He yells into the mic. Who's doing this? Who's out there? The radio answers calm. You are, Sheriff. Then the transmission ends with a faint echo, his own voice whispering from nowhere. Through reflection. He slams his fists against the glass. The reflection in the window stares back, but it's grinning. He isn't. Not real. Real. Not real. The reflection mouths something. 4 words before fading like smoke. See you tomorrow, Sheriff. Log entry concluded. Or maybe just beginning. Sheriff Eldon Brackett. Log entry, March 17th. Day 6.
Can't tell what time it is anymore. My watch says 3:17. Again. Always 3:17. His voice drags, more whisper than speech now. Each syllable lands heavy, soaked through with disbelief and exhaustion. You can hear him swallowing between words, trying to keep the calm of a man trained to stay composed, even as the world folds in on itself. He clicks the flashlight on. A beam cuts through the fog like a knife through milk, thick and opaque. It falls on the church. Only the church isn't a ruin anymore. It's whole. Brand new. Whitewashed walls, cross polished, lanterns burning. Voices whisper hymns inside, too soft to be language, too exact to be wind. He takes a step forward. The fog recoils around his ankles, moving like something alive. He mutters under his breath, "Not real. Real. Not real." He opens the recorder again. Returning to Redeemer's Rest. Structure has reappeared. Full restoration. Unknown cause. Possibly hallucination. Possibly. He trails off. Possibly something else. He walks to the door. The handle is cold. His reflection in the glass pane moves half a second late. He steps in. The smell hits him first. Not decay anymore, but beeswax, incense, something sweet and chemical like formaldehyde. The air feels thick, like walking through syrup. Every pew is filled. Every figure sitting there turns its head in unison as he enters. He freezes. It's them. Every missing person from the 1978 file. Faces pale and waxy, mouths frozen mid-hymn but eyes glistening. Alive, in a way flesh shouldn't be. He whispers, "You're all." He can't finish. They blink once, slowly, all together. The organ starts to play. It's out of tune, groaning like metal bending under heat. He lifts his flashlight. The beam lands on the pulpit. A figure stands there, back turned, head bowed. He recognizes the shape. Broad shoulders, worn hat, sheriff's badge glinting under the candles. "Dad?" The figure lifts its head but doesn't turn. A voice fills the church, not from the pulpit, not from his recorder, but from everywhere. It's his father's voice. Calm, steady, commanding. "You came home, boy. I knew you would." "I knew you would." Brackett steps forward. "This isn't real." His father, or the thing pretending to be him, finally turns. Half his face is normal. The other half ripples like water, reflection not settling, as though seen through glass. "Everything here is real. You're what's not." Brackett shakes his head. "You died in 78. The reflection smile widens. "I did. And you've been dying ever since. Through reflection." The congregation hums again, not singing, just vibrating, filling the air with something that feels like pressure. He grips his chest, heartbeat matching the rhythm of their hums. He looks down at the floor. Water seeps up through the boards, black, rippling. It rises fast, soaking his boots, then ankles, then knees. Every reflection in that water is wrong, each one a different version of him. Some younger, some older, some still wearing the badge. One smiling, one screaming, one whispering, "Help me." He raises his gun, hand trembling. "Stop! All of you!" The figures in the pews don't move, but the reflections do. Hundreds of him, moving perfectly in sync, pointing invisible guns at their own ghosts. He fires once. The echo doesn't fade. It repeats. 2 shots. 3. 4. He stops firing, but the echoes continue. They're not echoes anymore. They're other shots, fired by other versions of him in other times. The air turns hot. The organ distorts. The reflections climb from the water, stepping through the surface as if it's a doorway, dripping, glassy, perfect copies of him. Each carries a badge, each bleeding static where their faces should be. He backs toward the altar. His father's voice rises above it all. "There's no leaving, son. There's only returning." Wind howling rises to hurricane pitch, pews creak under invisible weight. The candles burst one by one, each extinguished with a hiss, and then the church goes dark. Silence. Heartbeat, slow and alone. He whispers into the recorder, voice shaking. Multiple entities. Human appearance. Mimicry exact. Reality unstable. I think I'm inside something alive. He drops to his knees, water up to his chest now. He can see faces moving below the surface. The townspeople, the deputies, his father, and himself, multiplied infinite, each one mouthing the same words. Not real. Real. Not real. He slams the recorder shut, but it won't stop. It plays his voice from a future that hasn't happened yet. "You won't remember this. You'll come back again. You always do." He covers his ears, screams, "Stop it!" The sound cuts instantly. Then, quiet. Just the drip of water and his own shaking breath. Time. The church begins to tilt. Slow, deliberate, as if sinking. The water climbs the windows. Candles float. The congregation sits still, their eyes fixed upward as the ceiling slides closer to their faces. Brackett claws toward the door, swimming now more than walking. Each step takes him nowhere. The aisle stretches, lengthening in front of him, the exit always too far. He screams again, wordless. The church responds with a single low tone, deeper than thunder, vibrating through bone. Then, all at once, silence. Everything freezes. Water stops moving. Smoke stops rising. And every reflection in the water turns its head toward him. Together. He whispers, barely audible. Not real. The reflection chorus answers all at once. Real. The world shatters like glass. Shock sound, sharp break, echo into static hum. He wakes up outside the church, dry, kneeling in the mud. No flood, no ruin, just the smell of pine and a thin gray dawn. He looks around, everything still. No church, no cabin, only his cruiser parked nearby, lights dim. He climbs in. His reflection in the rearview mirror is smiling again. He doesn't. Not real. Real. Not real. The recorder clicks off. Irregular. Howling through reeds. Sheriff Eldon Brackett, log entry. March. I don't know what day. I think I've been here longer than 6 days. Or maybe I never left at all. His tone is hollow now, like a voice trapped inside a well. Each word drips with the weight of something learned too late. The pause between breaths stretches wider, as if he's forcing air into lungs that aren't his anymore. I woke up by the cruiser again. Same spot, same mud on the tires, same bell, still ringing. Jesus calling time back to where it started. He opens the driver door, sits down. The seat is dry. The keys are already in the ignition. He stares at them, whispering, "Not real. Real. Not real." The reflection in the window watches him, not mocking now, just waiting. He turns the recorder back on. The parish doesn't end. It folds. Every road comes back to here. Even the water circles itself. He exhales, shaking. I think I know what it wants. He opens the glove box. Inside, 13 cassettes, each labeled in his handwriting. He flips through them. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3. The last one reads, "Final recording." But when he turns it over, there's a different inscription scratched into the back of the case. Not written, but etched, as if by something sharp pressed from the inside. Not final. He laughs softly, the sound cracked and exhausted. Of course not. Never final. He presses play anyway. The voice that speaks is his own, but calmer, measured. If you're hearing this, it's already begun again. The parish doesn't want saving. It wants remembering. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. He hits stop, looks down at his hands. They're shaking, but the hands in the window reflection aren't. The reflection smiles again. He whispers, voice breaking, "What are you?" The reflection mouths the answer before he speaks it. You. Faith teen, knees sinking into mud. The swamp is unnaturally still. No birds, no insects. Even the air seems to have paused. Then he sees movement, not from the trees but from the water itself. Shapes rising from beneath, like breath made solid. People, dozens of them, slowly standing in the shallow water, eyes glassy, skin glistening under non-existent light. Each one identical to him. No, they all speak at once. Not real, real, not real. He backs away, boots sloshing. The crowd of reflection steps forward perfectly in sync. When he stops, they stop. When he breathes, they breathe. You can't all be me. The first one in the front, face half in shadow, smiles faintly. We are what's left when the tape runs out. He stumbles, falls backward. The recorder hits the ground, still running. The reflections close in, moving soundlessly now. One kneels beside him, its face flickering between his father, himself, and something too dark to name. You wrote it all down, it says. You made it real. He stammers. I didn't write anything. The reflection tilts its head. Then who's been typing? Face echoing through the woods. The sound gets louder, closer, faster. Keys striking harder until it becomes mechanical thunder. Words are being written somewhere, the world itself rewriting its own lines. He screams into the recorder. If anyone finds this, don't play the tapes. Don't. The typewriter stops. One last ding, then silence. Wind dies, total stillness. He looks around. The swamp is gone. He's standing in the church again. Except this time there's no congregation, no father, no noise, just him and the pulpit. On it, the typewriter, new sheet threaded, blank, keys waiting. He steps closer, whispers, "Not real. Real. Not real." The typewriter answers by typing it back. Not trial. Real. Not trial. Each letter sounds like a heartbeat. He reaches for the paper, and as he touches it, the ink bleeds, forming words he hasn't said yet. Sheriff Brackett reporting, crossing parish line now. He stares, shaking his head. No, I already. But the world flickers, the church fades, and suddenly he's back in the cruiser. Engine on, radio hissing, same words on his lips. "Dispatch, this is Brackett. Crossing parish line now." The loop resets. Echo layering multiple versions of his voice overlapping, slightly out of sync. Dozens of Bracketts, past, future, mirrored, all reporting in at once. Crossing parish line now. Crossing parish line now. Crossing parish line now. The noise swells until it becomes a single tone. Long, pure, almost holy. Then, quiet. He sits in the driver's seat, motionless. The reflection in the mirror isn't smiling anymore. It looks tired, sad. It raises a hand and waves. He whispers softly with what's left of his mind. "If I don't look back, maybe it'll stop." He puts the cruiser in drive. Headlights cut through the fog. The road ahead never ends. Engine hum, tires on wet gravel. Distant rain returns. Not real. Real. Not real. The tape begins to degrade. Sound warps, stretching and folding over itself. Then faintly, you can hear the bell again. Bell toll once. Clear, slow, final. The audio fractures, tiny bits of silence between warped echoes of his last words. Not real. Real. Not real. Well, it is. Calm but hesitant. You ever notice how some stories don't end? How they just stop moving and then start again when no one's paying attention? They found Sheriff Eldon Brackett's patrol car 2 weeks later, half sunk in the mud outside St. Clement Parish. No sign of him inside, just a trunk full of tapes. 13 of them, all labeled in his handwriting. The first 12 were blank. The 13th one, the last, still played. Tape inserted. The jumps comes through, tired, flat, familiar. Sheriff Brackett reporting, crossing parish line now. That's it. No screams, no struggle. Just the same phrase over and over. And in the background, if you turn the volume up, way up, you can hear something else. A faint ding, like a typewriter bell. And under that, a whisper that isn't his. Through reflection. The tape ends there. At least, it's supposed to. But every few months, someone plays it again, and the end is a little longer. Another breath, another line. A voice that wasn't there before. Sometimes it's a laugh. Sometimes it's the sound of footsteps on gravel. Once, just once, someone swore they heard a second voice whisper, "Dispatch, this is Brackett."
The parish was eventually drained by the state. Developers came in, tried to build over the old Redeemer's Rest property. But every blueprint failed. Surveyors kept getting lost.
GPS stopped working. Every time they tried to clear the land, the machines broke down at exactly 3:17 a.m. The project was abandoned. Now the church is just gone, not even a foundation left. But at night, truckers say they still see light flickering through the fog where the steeple should be. And if you pull over, roll your window down, and listen real close, you can hear someone talking through the static on the CB. "Dispatch, this is Sheriff Brackett, crossing parish line now." Faint, overlapping voices repeating line in background. They say it's a ghost story, that maybe he drowned or lost his mind out there, but the tapes, they're real. And every few years, another one shows up. Same label, same handwriting, fresh ink. Last one turned up last month, mailed to the sheriff's office in Baton Rouge. No return address. The handwriting looked older, shakier, but it still said the same thing. Final recording. The deputy who logged it, rookie named Keller, said he made the mistake of playing it in the cruiser. He said it started normal, static, hum, the sheriff's voice, but then halfway through it changed. He heard his own voice on the tape, saying things he hadn't said yet. He ejected it immediately, but when he looked up, the road in front of him was gone, just fog, and the sound of a bell, somewhere deep in the swamp. They drove all night, trying to find the highway again. He ended up back at the same mile marker every single time, 7. When they found him the next morning, the cruiser was still running. He was sitting in the driver's seat, mouth open, eyes staring forward like he was watching something only he could see. The tape was gone. Long, unsettling pause. You might think this is just a story, something whispered in small towns when the fog rolls in too thick, when the crickets go quiet. But you can still call the old Saint Clement frequency, and if you do, at exactly 3:17 a.m., you'll hear someone answer. "Dispatch, this is Brackett, crossing parish line now." Another voice closer to Mike whispering behind static. "Welcome home." One last word appears on the page. Recording. The sound bleeds away, static folding into silence. Then a faint, human breath, too close to the mic. "Not real, not real, not real." And if you're hearing it, it already knows you. You don't believe me, do you?